Alright, so you're looking to soundproof a basement ceiling. Now, I am in my basement right now, but the ceiling is not really soundproof in this basement. It's a completely finished ceiling. However, you can still hear quite a lot from upstairs. So if I were to soundproof this finished basement ceiling, I would do typically something a little bit different than if I would finish a ceiling that is unfinished. So in this video, I'll be talking about both methods of soundproofing a basement ceiling, whether it's finished or unfinished. If it's finished, you're a little bit limited in the different types of noise that you can actually soundproof. These two types of noise are, of course, impact noise and airborne noise. I mentioned this in a lot of videos, so I'll just talk about it briefly. Airborne noise is basically the noises that travels through the air, airborne. And impact noise is, well, the noise that you typically want to soundproof in a basement, because the impact noise is the noise of the footsteps of people walking above you. It's the impact, it's the vibrational noise that's going through a building or a wall. That's the impact noise. You'll have to use a little bit of a different method of soundproofing for soundproofing impact noise versus airborne noise. The thing is, if your basement ceiling is already finished, you can't really go ahead and soundproof for impact noise. The only way that you can do that is to unfinish your ceiling by ripping out the drywall that's already installed. So first we'll talk about soundproofing a already finished basement ceiling. So you'd basically soundproof it the same type of way that you would soundproof a wall. You'd add mass. So you'd want to add an extra layer of drywall, preferably a 5 and 8 inch drywall, before installing another layer of drywall. So there's a few things that you can do to make the soundproofing project a little bit more worth it. Now, the first thing that you'll need is acoustical sealant, because you'll want to go and seal all the gaps and the cracks on the ceiling. And yes, there are some, because you'll most likely have a light fixture, and since you can't go behind the light fixture because your basement ceiling is already finished, you can seal around the light fixture, basically where the light fixture box or the electrical box meets the ceiling. So just seal that with acoustical sealant. And acoustical sealant is a little bit more expensive than just your regular caulking. The difference between this and your regular caulking is that this type of sealant will not dry up and crack over time. And since you're soundproofing a basement ceiling, there'll be a lot of vibrations because of the footsteps. So this type of sealant, this type of caulking at least, will not crack and let noise in. It'll just stay rubbery and will stay sealed. Other than the electrical box of the light fixture, there could be other things on the ceiling like a smoke detector, but these could be either just screwed there, or if they're wired in, there could be holes there that you could seal. The next thing that you'll want to use is acoustical compound, but if you want to use something a little bit cheaper than acoustical compound, you can just go with carpet glue, a certain type of carpet glue. I'll have a link in the description below of that exact product, and also everything I talk about in this video to make it a lot easier for you. So what you'll want to do with the carpet glue or the acoustical compound is you'll want to add it on the extra layer of drywall that you'll be installing on the ceiling. So this compound or carpet glue will be in between, a sandwich in between the ceiling and your second layer of drywall. And if you want more information on acoustical compounds and why you should use carpet glue instead, video right there. Go watch it after watching this video, of course. And even though you're using carpet glue, yes, it will stick to the ceiling, but please, you still need to use drywall screws. Now, if you want to go a step further, you can add a layer of mass-loaded vinyl. Now mass-loaded vinyl will work a lot better than acoustical compound or carpet glue, but it also costs a lot more money. What's nice about mass-loaded vinyl is that because it is a rubbery compound and it is quite dense, it will absorb some of the impact noise coming down. So if you do have a lot of impact noise and you really cannot remove the ceiling, then adding a layer of mass-loaded vinyl will make a little bit of a difference to mitigate the impact noise between floors. One thing that's important is to completely cover the ceiling with this mass-loaded vinyl, and you can use 1 pound or 2 pounds. I would just go with the 2 pounds. It's more expensive, but if you're going to soundproof a ceiling, the 2 pounds is probably the way to go. After installing the mass-loaded vinyl, you can now install your second layer of drywall. Now to seal it even more, while installing the layer of drywall, use acoustical sealant between the sheets of drywall to basically seal it completely. The more airtight your ceiling is, the more soundproof it will be. Now that's pretty well all you can do to soundproof an already existing basement ceiling. Now, if you're lucky enough that your basement ceiling is unfinished, well, now you can do a little bit more to soundproof for impact noise, which is probably what you'll want to soundproof for. The first thing that you'll want to do if your basement ceiling is unfinished is add acoustical insulation. Rock wool, mineral wool will work better at deadening the sound between levels than just your typical pink fiberglass insulation. To learn more about this type of sound deadening insulation, video right there. After installing the insulation, it's now time to add your resilient channel. Now what resilient channel does is that it separates the floor joists from the basement ceiling. So the vibration does not go from the floor above down to the ceiling below. It completely separates it. The important thing to note about resilient channel is if you've never installed it, you should really hire a professional that has installed this type of soundproofing material before, because if you don't install it perfectly, it will not work. Because some people will tell you that resilient channel just doesn't work. Well, it's probably because it was not installed perfectly. If you make just one mistake, it could just make it completely useless. And if you want to learn more about resilient channel, I'll have links in the description below. Now that the resilient channel is installed, before adding your drywall, you'll want to add something called putty pads onto the electrical box of your light fixtures, because this is something that you usually add on your electrical outlet boxes, but since you're trying to soundproof a ceiling, the holes that the electrical wires goes through from the ceiling into the box, those holes will let noise through from upstairs into downstairs. So use putty pads to completely seal those electrical box. If you're wondering if putty pads are safe to use because of, let's say, fire, well, the reason why these were invented was for a fire prevention. It will encapsulate the fire inside that electrical box, hopefully for as much time it needs to extinguish. But another thing that this product does is that it seals all those holes and makes it a little bit more soundproof. And after you're done adding your putty pad, it's now time to add your 5 and 8 inch drywall onto the ceiling, completing the ceiling, but make sure not to forget to add your acoustical sealant in between each sheets of drywall to completely seal the ceiling as best as possible. And now that your first layer of drywall is installed, you can basically soundproof the ceiling the same way that you would soundproof a already finished basement ceiling. You were just lucky enough to get behind the ceiling and be able to do a lot more soundproofing than just adding mass. But at least adding mass will help, drowning out a lot of the airborne noise, and the mass-loaded vinyl will help a little bit in drowning out some of the impact noise. Hopefully this video will help you soundproof your basement ceiling. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I'll thank you very much for watching. Until next time.